Okay, we are rolling. It's so nice to speak to you, Ben, a new friend. I would love to hear a little bit about your work on Talk Club. So tell us all about it.
Well, lovely to be here, George. First of all, how are you out of 10?
Oh, I start off, I reckon I'm about 7, but it goes up throughout the day. I'm not really a morning person, but yeah, 7.5. Thanks for asking. What about you?
I'll be honest. I came in at a 7. I've had a bit of a rough couple of weeks, sort of like just sort of trying to deal with some stuff personally. But I came in this morning at 7, deciding to be positive, and then just having a chat to you, I'm up to 7.5 already. So, snap is probably the quickest way of getting there. Talk Club. So,
Well, I have a quick question actually. I'd just love to know what sort of margin if I come in at a 7, what can I realistically, can I go up +2, plus or -2? Is that sort of...
you can go up to anything you like. It's sort of, or go down to anything you like. They're your numbers. That's the point. It's a technique. It's a technique for just getting people to start.
So tell me about Talk Club.
So Talk Club is a male mental health charity. We reframe it as a male mental fitness movement. We focus on the positive of mental health, how to get yourself mentally fit, and as we've just done there, it's we'll base everything around how are you out of 10. The first ever Talk Club started in the back of the Bristol Beer Factory, a pub in Bristol here, and now we've got 121 clubs around the UK. We don't advise more than 10 in a group. Normally last about a typical talk and listen group, which is the ones that are sitting down talking, can last around 2 hours, 4 rounds. How are you out of 10? Then what you're grateful for. Normally I'll whinge about my kids, and then I'll be grateful for my kids. And then round 3 is how you can look after your mental fitness this week, which is based around the big 3: your diet, your exercise, and your sleep. And then your checkout numbers. So it's a real simple sort of framework. As I say, you sort of in a pub, you're like in a talk and listen group. They're normally in sort of male comfortable places like pubs. But we've also got talk and exercise groups, which are how are you out of 10? Then you go and play your sports. We've got football, rugby, skating, paddle, and we've got talk and yoga. And then at the other end of the scale, we've got Talk Club therapy. So if you are regularly checking in below a 5 and you need a bit more help, the captain might sort of pull you aside and go, "Would you be interested in Talk Club therapy?" So that's sort of 5, even though everyone's numbers is their number. 5 is our sort of our marker to sort of go, okay, you might need a bit more help, and those are run by qualified therapists.
This is one of the things, point of hypocrisy that I often find from the general public. I often hear men can't talk, men don't want to talk, men don't open up, etc. But then I talk to people like you, and it seems like you can't open up groups fast enough, like 122 groups, I think you said. How does that make sense? If men don't want to talk, why are you so successful at getting them to talk? I mean, is that, who's wrong there exactly, do you think?
Well, the truth of the matter is, the men don't, in my opinion, men don't know how to talk, because what happens is I sort of say, like, people go and talk to your friend about your feelings, and you go, well, it's a foreign language. Feelings is a foreign language. You might as well go and speak Latin to your mate. I don't know how to speak Latin. I've never done it. But when you can actually start putting it in a number, in my experience, men find it a lot easier to put their feelings into a number, because you go, "How are you feeling?" and they'll go, "I don't know. I'm okay. I'm sort of a bit down." But if you sort of say, "Okay, give me a number about how you're feeling," they'll go, "Okay, I'm a 6," and you'll go, "Okay, why are you a 6? Like, why are you not a 5? Why are you not a 7? Why are you a 6? Why does 6 feel right?" And then that is the catalyst for normally opening up. And I think as well, what we're trying to do is we're just making it okay to be vulnerable. With the idea of mental fitness is, as soon as you say mental health, quite a lot of the time, as soon as you say mental health, people go to mental ill health. They think mental ill health. They don't think my mental health, like my physical health. My physical health is either good or my physical health is bad. It can be everything from a cold to cancer. And the same with our mental health. Our mental health can be everything from mild anxiety to schizophrenia. So, but when people say mental health, normally you're thinking mental ill health. Even our algorithms are doing that. You go onto Google and you'll see those words, depression and anxiety and sort of stuff like that. when you say mental fitness is a state. You can move up and move down. And when I say to people, okay, if you can be mentally fit, you can be mentally strong. And if you're mentally strong, you're better for your family, you're better for your wife, your husband, your partners, your friends. You can be better who you are. Then fitness is a very, very good word for men because they can control that. Because all we're doing is giving people the tools. All
Mm,
we're doing is like I compare it a lot to the gym. I sort of go like, um, I go for a run. I can give you the trainers. I can even sort of put together motivational music. I can either say I'll come running with you, but you
mm.
have to go for the run. The same as mental health, mental fitness. You need to look after yourself. We can give you the tools, but you need to do the work. So that's why I think it's working. That's why I think it's working.
But do you think the problem isn't necessarily men don't know how to talk, but more the fact that the way in which men are already talking is just not recognized within our quite narrow model of therapy? Like if I think of therapy, I'm thinking of like a clinic environment, one to one, face to face, often talking to a woman because most therapists are women, and that doesn't seem as designed for men as it is for women. Whereas what you're doing, you're opening it up, you've got a men's group, you're taking it out of the clinical space, you're bringing in some sort of physical activity, you're framing it in a more of an objective 1 to 10 sort of way. So I'd wonder, is it true that men don't know how to talk? Or perhaps the way we see talk and disclosure of stress is just not seeing men and how they already are doing it? Like how does that work out?
I agree, 100%. Accessibility,
Mm,
accessibility. I mean, that's the thing. You sort of go. I also think that we're not particularly good at looking after ourselves.
mm,
We don't like if you've never done therapy before. The idea of sitting there for an hour or 50 minutes and someone going, "Tell me about your life," is very, very daunting. It's very
yeah.
confrontational. I mean, there's lots of research about about shoulder to shoulder versus
Mm,
looking someone in the face. Men find, in my experience, men find that type of stuff confrontational. We've built we're not just a charity, we're a brand, we're a badge. You trust Talk Club. If you trust us, then you will trust what environments we put you into. So you'll trust our therapy. Our therapy begins
mm,
with how are you out of 10 because you're
mm.
used to it. Men are a lot more find that a lot more accessible. We're not used to spending that time on ourselves. Doing a broad brush here, but sort of like women will go, okay, I need a pedicure, I need a manicure, I need to look after myself, I need a
Mm.
facial, I need these things, I need this massage. Our massages hurt. Right, we go for a sports massage and I come out in pain.
Yeah.
So it's there's something inside this thing of go harder, go stronger, go quicker that society has taught men um, for years, and then suddenly sort of go, okay, now open up to me. You go, oh, I've never done that before. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of access men's feelings a lot earlier through the idea of mental fitness.
It's just like I guess, a balancing act. Like how much of it is encouraging men to talk, and how much of it is it meeting men where they already are. Like I think that the sort of fitness thing, the physical fitness thing, is really important. And like men do seem to, on average, want to push themselves more. They want to overcome things. They want to do sort of the Iron Man challenge. And often people see that as toxic. I mean, how much of that is good and we should hold on to, and how much of it is can be harmful, do you think? Like where do we balance it? Like I wouldn't want to just disregard the ways in which men have historically, looked after themselves, but at the same time I also recognize that there was work to be done there too. So how do you get that balancing act right?
Understanding men, we are men. Going to where men are is always been our thing. Like we've got an alcohol-free beer, Clear Head. I love pubs. I grew up in pubs. I found pubs really, really comfortable places to be. But I know that alcohol and depression are a bad combination. We know
Mm,
this. So an alcohol-free beer that's sort of like that's kick-ass and great, that actually brings money in and spreads the word and helps me create more clubs, that's a good vehicle. So a lot of what we do is we work with football clubs. I think we're in 9 or 10 professional football clubs. We work in gyms. And I think that understanding that men are different to the way that women consume things, and then leaning into that and sort of like going, look, okay, I hate the thought of toxic masculinity. I hate because I find that toxic itself. It's is masculinity toxic, or is toxic masculinity toxic? So I think it's about accepting who we are and accepting that we have needs and we have feelings. The reason why we started this was I made a film called Steve about my childhood best friend who took his own life, and about how we can all access this help. But actually, I'm not just trying to save the next Steve. I'm trying to save my boy. So
Mm,
I'm trying to help my boy come into a world. I think the role of the man has changed. In Steve, we talk about winning the bacon and cooking it too. And um, I
mm,
I feel that. I really feel that. I mean, I cook. All joking aside, I cook far more than my wife cooks. I drop my children off and pick my children up every day. My children are my wife's an SEN teacher, so she has to leave early and gets back quite late. And it's really, really important for me to be a positive role model to all my children, not just my boy, but my two girls as well. My dad my dad worked a lot. My dad never dropped me off at school, and then my stepdad is a fabulous man. He was always working. Gave me a great
mm.
work ethic, but didn't give me a particularly great uh, feeling of love. I wrote him a letter about 5 years ago, telling him I loved him and how important he is to me in my life. And on Father's Day, wrote him this letter and sort of like and told him just because the grandchildren aren't his blood grandchildren doesn't mean that they're not his, and he needs to be coming. He doesn't have to just wait for my mum to come over and see us. They live in
Mm.
Ireland, and he jumped on a plane next weekend and came over and saw us. So I think we've got this whole world where we need to tell men that they're loved. All men need to be told that they're loved, um, both by their family and hopefully their friends. And I think that is what's creating a lot of this thing, compassion and love, that we don't feel it. It's seen as a more it's more of a feminine trait,
Mm.
when it comes to sort of like telling our men in our lives that they're loved.
I relate to that a lot. I think it reminds me of crying. Like, I don't often cry. I've been doing a lot of research into crying recently with a friend of mine called Ezra, and he's been talking to experts in crying, and he's found that basically there's no biological benefit to crying, directly speaking. It doesn't do anything for you. What crying does and where it evolved is that it's a signal to others that you need help. You're in distress and you need help. And I don't cry, and I've started to see that in a different light, where if crying is a signal to seek to get help and compassion from others and support, why would someone learn never to cry? And presumably it's because they were never helped. They weren't helped in the same way. And it lines up so much with what you're saying, where we don't seem to have compassion for men. We don't seem to be, there isn't much kindness for men. I see it all the time. People laughing up the content I put up. And you just have to ask a normal man, like, when was the last time someone bought you flowers? Or when was the last time someone complimented you or showed you kindness or generosity? And I feel like that's such an important part, and I'm so glad to hear you talk about it. But I would just love to go back to why you're doing this. It was a really important cause, and of course that cause is male suicide, and bringing that incredibly high number down. So why did you start TalkClub, and what is the ultimate purpose of it? Mm,
So a trigger warning, I'm going to talk about suicide. So, suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50. So,
mm,
statistically, the thing most likely to kill me is me. A man dies every 2 hours by his own hand in the UK. One of those horrific statistics was my childhood best friend, a bloke called Steve Yates. We were brothers by another mother. We were sort of born 4 days apart. We were inseparable from the age of 11 till our mid 20s. It was Dumb and Dumber. You couldn't find one without the other. Um, and then it was sort of in our mid 20s we started sort of our careers started pushing us apart a little bit. Girlfriends, wives, children. Everything was looking okay. I mean, like we caught up on social media. We caught up on video calls, but I mean, I didn't know what was going on in his life. If I couldn't have done. And we'd arranged to sort of meet up. He was a big Man United fan. I was living in Manchester. I bought tickets to sort of go. I got some tickets to go to see a game, and then I got a phone call from his cousin saying that he'd taken his own life, and it just smashed me in the face. I'd grown up around mental ill health. My dad was schizophrenic. My mum's a therapist, so I knew what mental ill health was, but I'd never been confronted by suicide before. And the last person on the planet I thought to take his own life would be Steve. So it took me a while. It took me 3 years of therapy to try and work out why, and anyone that's suffered, been bereaved by suicide knows it's very hard to find a why.
Mm.
So after 3 years, I'm sitting in a I've forgotten the word now. A hammock. I'm sitting in a hammock in France. I'm picturing it in my hammock. I'm sitting in this hammock in France, and I'm reading a Sunday sup talking about those horrible statistics that I've just mentioned. Except at that age, at that time, it was 45, the biggest killer of men under 45. And I just got angry. I sort of read this and said that, like, Steve wasn't a number. He was a dad, he was a son, he was a brother, and he was a friend, and I got really angry. And then I was reading in the same Sunday supplement about the statistics of what how we spend our time, men spend our time on a different article, and men of our age, we watch sport and documentaries. So I went, excuse my language, fuck it, I'm gonna make a film. And I grew up in advertising, so, I used to write adverts, and then, so I just thought, "Fuck it, I'll make a film." I said to my wife, who was a TV producer, and she said, "No, you're not doing that." And I said, I think I need to do that." So she goes, "Okay, as long as you get more therapy." So I sort of rang my therapist and sort of, like, discussed it with him, and we agreed a care package. And then,
Yeah.
in my head, it was just gonna be a little 15-minute film about the statistics, about how Steve wasn't a statistic, and then it just started snowballing. So I just traveled the country meeting amazing people and made this film. And as I was doing these pre-screenings, people were going, "This is sort of this is amazing. Now what? You've opened me up. Now what?" And I was like, "Okay." And we sort of said, "Maybe we need to start a positive talking group," because there are talking groups out there. There's people doing great stuff, but no one was really looking upstream. So there were 6 of us founded TalkClub, gave us a therapist, so it made it a lot. We had the safeguarding there, we had the
Mm.
rules there, that we knew we were gonna be safe. Me and Neil are more advertising people, so we had these sort of, like, we had the brand worked out and what we were gonna look like and how we were gonna sound. And we're both writers, so we make everything very, very simple. And then it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we were sort of like, "Okay, we probably need to start taking this seriously now and become a charity." So 3 of us worked for the charity and 3 of us went to the board of trustees. I think 120, 122 groups, around the UK. It could be more by the time I finish this call. We're helping a lot of men and a lot of families. I did a talk last week, and this bloke just came up to me and sort of said to me, "I'm only alive because of you." It really, really hit me because he was there with his boy,
Mm.
but he sort of said, "Don't say anything because my boy's over there, but I'm only alive because of you." And it really struck me, it really hit me, and I only set this up to save the next Steve, save one person. Um,
Mm.
so that was where that's the story of it. That's where we got to, and that's why we exist.
It's such a great story, and I'm so grateful you did it all. It sounds like a really rewarding, wonderful experience for you. One of the things I wanted to bring you back on is that you talked about Steve and said it's hard to find a why, and that's just a tragic sort of thing. I speak to a lot of people who have lost friends and family members to suicide, and they never seem to know why, and that's what's so sad about it. And yet, when I go online, there are people that claim to know why men die by suicide, and they present the same idea not just for one man but for all men, and it's toxic masculinity that's doing it. And I really hate that concept. But how does that make sense? How can someone, like you said, you're his best friend, and you don't know why he died by suicide? So how can someone online claim to have all the answers, not just to Steve, but to all men? Like, how does that? That must be very frustrating for you.
It's not toxic masculinity didn't kill Steve. It wasn't
Mm.
100%. I mean, you got to remember that when for someone to make such a completion like that, "I don't want to be
Mm.
here anymore," but they believe the world is better off without them. They've got to hit a pretty low. They've got to be pretty low, and they've got to hit a pretty low level. I mean, like, when I read Steve's note, there was a complete apology there of he feels like he'd let everyone down. And that's
Mm.
nothing to do with toxic masculinity, that's to do with, I think we've grown up in a world where I don't think we realise how important we are to other people. I don't think Steve realised how important he was to other people.
Mm.
Um, there was 400 people at his funeral. That's love.
Wow.
There was standing room only at the back, and, and it was just sort of funny being there talking about Steve, this kind, caring, lovely man, um, who was still a boy, if you like, because he hadn't been able to develop his feelings into sort of like complete his feelings, if you like, of what was going on and what it was to be a father and a husband. So yeah, I think it comes back to what I found in the community quite a lot of the time is actually a connection, to feel connected. Um, and we need to be able to connect more with each other, but also a lot of it is actually just sort of just accepting ourselves for who we are. I think there was a lot of stuff where Steve's wife was trying to find answers, but she's as I said, we don't know these answers. We don't sort of like know these what gets us to that point of lowering. And I think there's a lot to do with losing our anchor. He lost his job. He thought he was going to lose his wife, and then it was despair. So I think he was losing hope, if I'm honest. So yeah, so I think it's more about hope and loss of hope than more than a toxicness in the world.
I mean, that answer is about 5 minutes long, and that came from Steve's best friend. And I still don't think we fully know why he did it, and we may never know. So the fact that you can't explain why men die by suicide in a tweet or a catchphrase, and that's I suppose the important thing. Like I've spoken to so many people, and we don't really know. That's why it's so tragic. But you're definitely right in terms of like the impact of a suicide is so much larger than we thought. I mean, I remember reading a study in 2019 because previously we thought 6 people impacted by every suicide, but the latest number is 135 people are directly impacted to some degree by every single suicide. And I don't think the men who make this decision realize how much it's going to devastate other people. Not saying that to make them feel guilty, but more to highlight how important they are and how important their lives are. And I understand through their eyes, maybe they don't feel that way, but 135 people being impacted by every suicide is a massive problem. I mean, you don't have to answer this question. It's a bit of a difficult one, Ben, but what do you think Steve would have said if he had come to a talk club?
I do believe that if someone had set up Talk Club 15 years ago, Steve would still be with us. I do
Mm,
believe that. Because I believe that it's something, and a lot of the men that I've met since in our clubs. I mean, Steve was a salt of the earth, working class boy. Wasn't sort of. I mean, he comes from a very loving family. His family are my family as well. I mean,
mm,
they're beautiful people. Um, but you didn't talk about struggles. And even in the film, when I interview his parents, his dad just sort of says, "Just tell us what's going on. I wish you'd have told us what's going on." I think that's the hardest part. He would have
mm.
hated the film because he's such a quiet bloke. He would have hated the attention. He would have hated the fact that I say his name every single day. He would have hated that. But but I do really believe that if someone else had done this, he'd still be with us. But I can't
Mm.
go back. I have to go forward. That bloke I met last week, his friends will will never know this feeling, the feeling that I've got. So that's sort of like that's what I hope.
I mean, there's no doubt you are saving lives. There are other Steves you have saved, but I mean, I often get told as well, men don't have issues, men don't experience X, Y, and Z. But you're often in the room with these men who are talking. So, what are the men saying in these groups? Obviously, you can't give names, but in principle, what sort of things are they telling you and other men?
Usual themes are money. Men are
Mm,
worried a lot about money.
mhm,
That there is still sort of like the world where men are more responsible for bringing the money in, especially in more traditional roles of sort of like your more typical working class worlds. Um, there's sort of there's the feeling of not being good enough that comes across quite a lot. It's just sort of like, am I a good enough father? Am I a good enough husband? A lot of it comes back to that compassion. They're sort of just not that great. They're not that kind on themselves, so they've been built up this. They're not used to using that word love and self love and sort of stuff like that. I think what's really interesting about the scale, obviously, what's great about people talk. Oh, it's too simple. How are you out of 10? What's fascinating about it is that you know where you are. So if
mm,
if you're regularly checking in at a 6, you go, okay, well, how do you get yourself to a 7? Now, I have to be kinder. I have to look after my mental health a bit more, my mental fitness a bit more. I have to sort of like, it could be what I'm eating. It could be my exercise. It could be laughing more. It could be going to some comedy, right? Um, so it's actually giving them an excuse to sort of to look after themselves. I mean, I actually gamify it. I sort of go, okay, if I'm a 6, I wake up at a 6. How do I get myself to a 7? How do I get myself to an
Mm.
8? This is just that's a technique that I'm using to sort of work it for me. But but it's actually what the numbers really do is we've just developed an app and it tracks where your feelings are and you check in. But what's great about it is you should be able to start noticing these cycles. Okay, why do I feel better after I've been out with these guys, or why do I feel better after I've played football? Okay, it's not complicated. So you actually being a lot more present. Normally, I won't let people have a 7 straight away because I think a 7's an automatic answer. You thought
Yeah.
about it a little bit, right? You did actually think about it, but normally I sort of say like, okay, look, are you closer to a 6 or are you closer to an 8? Because I want you to
Mm.
think. It's actually about thinking about it because I don't really mind what number you are, right? I've got a German friend who checks in at a 5, and I was like, 5? And he's like, yeah, 5's in the middle. And I was like, well, of course it is. But for some reason, us in the UK, we go 7 because 7 feels the middle. 7 feels
Mm.
average.
Mm.
But I actually just want you to think. I'm not really concentrating on your numbers unless they're really low, obviously. Like I feel 10's really, really indulgent. I go, I've only been 10, I've only been 10 3 times in my life, and that's the birth of my 3 kids. Don't tell my wife about my marriage, but our wedding day. But I've actually reframed that a lot inside this idea of spikes of 10, and you can of course, you can have a spike of 10. Like, I'm not a 10 because I'm not sitting in the sun. I'm not a 10 because of but you start moving away from things pretty quickly. What allows you with numbers is to sort of like it's to stay present and stay positive. And I think that's really, really important for what we're trying to do as a community is to stay present and stay positive.
I mean, I love the 1 to 10 scale. Often when you ask a man how he's doing, he'll give you the 7, the pre-rehearsed, yeah, I'm all right answer. But he doesn't normally feel all right. And you normally have to ask a second time, like, are you sure you're all right? And then you'll get a more honest answer. And that's why the number is so important. It's subjective. You're separating the man 1 degree from the actual emotions, which can be difficult to say, oh, I'm feeling depressed. One of the problems of men disclosing suicide, for example, was that they often do it in like a very joking, matter-of-fact way at a pub, and people just laugh it off. And that actually might be a genuine disclosure, but because it's delivered in such a flat way, we don't take it seriously, which is why I think the numbers are important, because you can't get away. Like a 3 out of 10 is bad, no matter how you say that. So what happens if your German friend is a 5, and then the next week he's a 4, and then 3 weeks later he's going down 3 to 2? What does TalkClub do then?
Well, the whole point is that dialogue. The whole point is if someone's opening up to you and saying to you, "I'm a 2, I'm a 3." What's amazing is that you've got that they're telling you this. They're not keeping it quiet. Steve never told me that. Steve never told us that, right? If he was in Talk Club and he goes, "I'm a 2, can anyone talk?" Suddenly, you've got I want to listen, and quite a lot of the time, people sort of say to me, "What happens if my mate says I'm a 3?" The answer is listen. The answer is just listen. Don't try and solve it for him. Go just listen to him because in reality, the fact is that if he's telling you what number he is, he wants you to help him, right? And he's not in the blue zone. The blue zone is the area where you are likely to take your own lives. If you are worried that someone is going to take their own lives, then ask them how serious they are. Are you serious? Have you started making plans? Because if you're starting to make plans, that's a proper time to sort of jump on it. Don't be scared of sort of asking someone if they're feeling suicidal. You are just trying to open them up. I Everyone has had suicidal thoughts at some stage, right?
Hmm.
Quite a lot of the time is just about being overwhelmed. When it starts getting to, have you started making plans? That's the time to start getting worried and start bringing intervention in and bringing in the crisis team. But when someone says to you, "I'm a 3," don't be scared of that 3. Just listen, because I promise you, 99 times out of 100, even 999 times out of 1,000, they just want to be heard. And that's actually what my whole feeling about society is at the moment. And what I love about what you're doing is most men just need to be heard,
Mm.
right? Most women need to be heard as well, right? It's not about male or female. We hear this thing about men don't talk. We do talk. I talk every day. I talk about everything. Football. I talk about complete rubbish stuff. Men don't talk about feelings, is what you're trying to say. Yeah, I agree with that. We don't talk about feelings. But more importantly, we don't think anyone wants to hear us.
Mm.
When you sort of say when you say stuff like, "How are you?" "I'm all right." "No, no, I'm a bit worried about you." "How are you really?" Let's push it even further. "How are you out of 10?" Because I care about you. I want to listen to you. I want to know where you are. I had this one point where my mate rang me up and he got on the phone and he said to me straight away, "Benny, I'm a 3." Now I know my job as a friend now is just to listen to him. So he just, "Okay, tell me why you're a 3." And he just went for about 15 minutes. Or we've all been in the pub when someone's got the courage to start talking about things once they're 3 pints in. Why do we have to wait to be 3 pints in to talk about our
Mm.
feeling? So that's what "How are you out of 10" allows us to do. As I say, don't be scared of the answer. If someone says 5 or 3, just listen to them. And if they say 1 and you go, "Look, how serious is that 1? Are you serious? Are you seriously thinking you don't want to be here anymore? Are you seriously thinking about suicide?" Don't be afraid of that because that's help. He's told you that 1. Then you go, "Okay, we need to get you some help." And then you ring the crisis team. But don't be scared. Don't be scared because that him telling you that means he wants you to know.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. One of the things I have seen you doing, which is wonderful, is looking at men in prisons. Like, what an important thing to do. And I think you mentioned that you have talk club in prisons.
Yeah, no, we've got talk clubs in prisons. I'm really proud of that work, because we always want to be where men are. So if men are watching Ipswich Town, and we have one there, or Bristol City, or are skating, or in prison, or drinking down the pub, or wherever men are, we are. That's the way that we look at it.
I mean, I've read some research in American prisons, and that found that 98% of men in prison had at least one adverse childhood experience. So, like an experience of abuse or witnessing abuse, 98% of the prison population. So, there must be such an unheard resource of trauma in prisons. And I would just love to know a little bit about, have they shared these experiences that give a little bit, shine a bit more light onto why they are in prison, first of all? Like, what have you heard?
Well, I mean, talk clubs are confidential, so I don't know. I've
Yeah.
not sat in those. I've not sat in those personal groups. So these are run in the prison by the prisoners. So we don't know. Um, but I think that the feeling is they're giving a lot. They're given space to be vulnerable,
Mm.
and I think if we bring it back to, we need to create more spaces, um, more opportunities for all men to be vulnerable, to especially around other men, to actually go, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel that I'm feeling fragile today. It's scary. I mean, like, prison must be scary, and to be vulnerable in prison is probably be the most scariest place to be vulnerable, to actually
Mm.
sort of say about your feelings. So we're over the moon that the construct is working, and men can actually just even put a number on there. They don't need to go too far. They can just go, I can still keep myself safe inside my own feelings, inside this thing, but actually to feel safe inside a circle of trust, which is really, really important, because that's what it is. I mean, these are circles of trust. Vulnerability is not a bad thing. It's a quicker way of getting to getting yourself fitter, to sort of
Mm.
getting yourself, because if you talk about what's going on for you, you can feel lighter, and if you feel lighter, then you can be stronger.
We've talked a lot about how men can be better talkers, but I'd love to end with, how can we be better listeners to men? Like, a man comes to you, he's a 3, he's a 4. What do I do? What do the listeners do to give that man space to feel heard? What top tips can you give us as a master of listening?
Well, it's exactly that. It's just, don't try and solve it. Just sort of go, why? Listen, and why. I mean, most of the time we just need space to be heard. So I can normally tell in someone's eyes whether they need to talk or something. So normally I'll pull them aside. I go, "Do you want to talk now? Do you want to talk now? Have you got time now? Have you got?" And then they'll go to me, "Have you got time now?" I said, I've got time now." So I've done it on the high street. I've pulled someone aside, and we've just gone off onto one of the smaller roads, and I've gone, "Tell me what's going on. Why? What number are you?" And they'll go, for example, they'll say, "I'm a 4," and you go, "Okay, why are you a 4?" And they'll just start unfolding, and then what I would almost do, if you feel that not enough there, and you sort of feel you need to give them some hope about sort of like or some perspective is really important. What I do is, okay, well, I actually will start running through the questions in Talk Club with them. I go, okay, so like a session, I go, okay, so that's all cool. That's where we are. Like, let's look at the good things that are going on for you at the moment. Let's look at everyone knows about gratitude diaries, but you sort of like go, what's the good things going on for you at the moment?
Mm.
And that will help them get some perspective back into where they are. But most people just need to be heard. It's so it's and we silence is a brilliant thing. Or active listening is what I call it, is what we do. Even like, that's what's great about TC. You have to turn your phone off. You have to look people in the eye. You have to listen. I mean, it should be called listening club, because you sort of like, you're only really talking for sort of like, I don't know, 10 minutes out of that 2 hours. Most of the time you're listening, you're empathizing, you're understanding what other people are going through. And what's really, really really interesting for me is like, on one of the early clubs I went to, I moaned about my kids. My kids were sort of quite young at the time. And then this other bloke, and he listened to me, and he gave me every bit of empathy. I was heard by him. And then he talked about his child's now 15, and his child had been as disabled, had been disabled obviously all the way through his life. And he came up to me afterwards, and he talked for his time. And he came up to me afterwards, goes, "Benny, can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's have a hug." And he goes, "Thank you. Thank you for that's the first time I feel I've been heard in a long time." He goes, "Everyone just tries to solve," I'm not gonna say his name, "everyone tries to solve his child's name's problems." He goes, "But he can't. He is what he is. He always has been that way. He's not going to change. I just needed to be heard." And it just really struck me, really, how we listen to reply, and we're not actually listening to understand.
Mm.
And actually hearing that, and actually hearing how someone is actually going, and making them feel validated, hearing them be heard, that is the important stuff. So when someone says to you they're a 3 or they're a 4, ask them why. Give them the space and the time to talk, and the environment. I mean, like, as I say, do you want to talk now, or should we just go, have you got time for a coffee? Like, let's just sort of like, I promise you, you will feel good about it afterwards as well, that someone has opened up and trusted you with their feelings.
Such great advice, Ben. Thank you so much. It reminds me a little bit about the research where I've helped sort of capture men's stories for male suicide research, and the amount of men that filled out that survey, which was a long 30-minute survey, and they sent me a separate message saying, "That's the first time I've ever told someone these things. That's the first time I felt heard." And it just breaks my heart that the first time these men have been heard from quite traumatic childhood experiences is by an online survey form on a blank screen. And I'm grateful that we could give that to them, but it just highlights the problem. It's not just men can't talk, but we aren't giving men the space to be heard. Apart from you of course are. So I guess to end on that, how do people find these spaces? How do men join a talk club?
Well, fantastic, the advert. Okay, so go to talkclub.org. On there, it's got a little button that says "Start Talking." Find a club near you, or go to an online group. Again, they'll just send you a Zoom link, and you can get there. Or if you want to set a club up, the clubs are run by captains. It takes an hour on Zoom to sort of like get the basics down, and then we continually are supporting men. Email us at hello@talkclub.org if you want to set up a talk club. But we've trained over, as I say, we've trained over 700 captains now. There's new clubs being set up almost every week, so we're moving at a pace of knots, because obviously the need is there. So please join us and find out more about us, or follow us on Talk Club Charity on all the bits and pieces. And also, I've got to acknowledge that talking isn't for everyone as well. I understand that. One of my friends, uh, Ollie Applin, runs the Mind Journal because he's not a talker. Ollie doesn't find talking easy. One of my techniques is I journal as well. It isn't just about. We're not saying talking and talk club is the answer. What we're saying is mental fitness is the answer. Look after yourself. If you're not a major talker, then why not try one of our exercise groups first? Come and play football with us, right? If you come and play football with us, then you might get used to the idea of how you out of 10 because it's only a light touch. And then you go, actually, I trust these guys a bit more now. I'll come and talk a bit further with them. Join the online groups first if you're a bit worried about it. There's all these different ways of joining us, but we want you in, George. We want you in.
I mean, I love talk groups. I mean, I've been invited to a few of them just because I know quite a lot of people that run them. And I always just go, I want to be an observer. I'm not going to get involved. I just want to see how, and then obviously I get involved. Like when they ask me, do you want to say anything, George? And I'm like, oh, and then eventually just can't get me to shut up. So I'm a big fan of them and I would actually love to come to a talk club. So I will accept that offer. And I'd encourage people watching to join a talk club at talkclub.org. It's really, really great. I love the branding. I love everything you've told me, Ben. And I think you're a massive part of the solution. So thank you so much for coming. If there's anything else you want to say, then please do. But it's been incredible speaking to you.
No. Thank you so much for having me on and all the work you're doing for us little us minions. What we're all trying to do is trying to create a better world for everyone, both male and female. And I think that's what's really important about the work you're doing for us is actually going like men are important too, and it's the two bit. Both male and female matter, and I think that's what we're doing. Is just sort of like I don't think anything that you're doing is putting women down. I think what you're doing is just putting men up, and I think that's good. I think that's okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean everything should really be about both and, not either or. I mean, both and is the important bit, and you're absolutely right. Everything we say about men doesn't mean we don't care equally about women. Often we have to talk exclusively about men because that's who we are, and in suicide especially, it is the disparity is so large that it does deserve some sort of individual attention as well. So yes, on that note, absolutely, and I am always thankful for the women that support me and follow me, and are no doubt listening to this podcast as well. So a special thank you to you too. Anyway, Ben, I've taken enough of your time. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much, and let's keep chatting, and I would love to come to one of your talk clubs and feed that back to my following.
Thank you.